Welcome to the Institute for Global Prosperity Virtual Taster Lecture. It's our privilege to be with you today and to welcome you to the IGP for this taster session. We're going to discuss a little bit more about perspectives on prosperity, and then we're going to open up the floor for a Q&A and to respond to as many questions as possible. Just before we move on, let me introduce you about what we will be covering today. I'm going to give you a brief introduction of who will be joining us today to answer your questions and to give you further information about the life of an IGP student. We're going to give you 3 taster sessions to introduce you to our different programs, MSc Global Prosperity, MSc Prosperity Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and MSc People, Prosperity and Planet. Then we're going to discuss a little bit more about the student experience and alternative scholarships that are available for UCL and IGP students. And then we're going to finalize the session by opening the floor to answer the questions for you. In this session, for the first part of the mini taster sessions, we're going to be leading the sessions by people that are directly involved in the different MSc programs. For MSc Global Prosperity, we have Dr. Nikolay Mintchev. For MSc Pi and MSc Triple P, it's me, Mara Torres Pinedo. And then for MSc Pi, Dr. Ville Takala. In the final bit, we're going to be joined also by our incredible support that we have at IGP by Amanda Pierce and Francesca Harrison, who will be answering questions about well-being scholarships available and wider applications inquiries. But before we move forward into the different programs, a little bit about us, the Institute for Global Prosperity. We are a small institute with a very important mission overall in terms of how we address the global challenges of our time and how do we build the research, the skills, and the social impact that is needed to redesign prosperity for the 21st century. In this way, one of the main aims of the Institute is to reconceptualize and change the way we conceive or run our economies and the things that matter for the well-being of people. And then also, in a wider sort of approach, is to rework the relationship that we have with the planet and to expand our understanding that without the planet that is functional, that lives within the limits of planetary boundaries, societies and economies don't have an opportunity to thrive and to actually continue surviving. And then we're going to move on with you, Nikolay, to get us started with a discussion on what is the Masters in Global Prosperity and what is this particular perspective on prosperity.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Mara. Hi, everyone. I'm Nikolay Mintchev. I'm a Principal Research Fellow at the IGP. And I'm just going to get us started with a few remarks and a few points about what prosperity is. Mara, would you mind going to the next slide, please? Okay, so, what is this thing, prosperity? So Mara mentioned at the beginning that one of the things that we aim to do at IGP is to redesign prosperity. And you're going to hear this phrase a lot. Sometimes you're going to hear different variations of the phrase, such as we're redefining prosperity or we're rethinking prosperity for the 21st century. But the question you might be asking yourself is, okay, but what exactly is it that we're redesigning or redefining? What is this thing, prosperity, that we're redefining, and what does it mean to redefine it, and how are we redefining it? So maybe to start us off, I want to ask you to just very quickly pop into the chat 1 or 2 words that come to mind that you associate with the term prosperity. When you hear the term, when you hear the word, what are the first things that come to mind? Let's maybe see what people... Human flourishing, equality, health. Great, fantastic. Anyone else? Well-being, success. Great, great. Happiness, inclusive society, community. Okay, this is fantastic. Mara, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so what I want to show you here is some data on associations that people make with the term. So this comes from a database based at the University of South Florida. And what they did to produce this database is they gave people a series of words and they asked them to freely associate with the first terms that come to mind when they hear that word. So I looked up the word prosperity to see what are the associations that people make to define it. And in order of frequency, the words were the following, the ones that are on the slide. So rich, money, wealth, success, gain, grow, happy, well, better, enhance, flourish, future, and so on and so forth. Now, there are a few things that, Mara, can you go back? Yes. Now, there are a few things that you're going to notice about these associations. One is that it's very difficult to have a kind of coherent, cohesive definition that encompasses all of them. But another thing that you might notice is that prosperity generally means two types of things. On the one hand, we have associations that are related to material wealth. So rich, money, wealth, profit, and so on. So a very narrow notion of material wealth. On the other hand, we have associations such as the ones that you guys put into the chat, right? So things like happy, well, flourish, progress, thrive. So these are much more complex notions of prosperity, of doing well, notions of doing well. So when we talk about redefining prosperity or redesigning prosperity, what we really mean is not just taking away one definition and replacing it with another. What we mean is reconfiguring the priorities of what we want to do in order to have prosperous society. So we want to kind of move away from the obsession with richness and wealth with money and to focus more on thriving and flourishing. So this is what we mean by redesigning prosperity. Now, the reason why we do that is very important. And it is that in the 21st century, there has been a separation between these two sides. So although we're growing our economies, we're not doing so well in terms of the flourishing and the thriving and having positive visions of the future. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a graph. So this graph shows the size of the global economy. Now, at the moment, it is just over $100 trillion. Now, if you look at the point in the middle, around 1990, you will see that it was about $20 trillion. So in just about 25 years, the global economy has grown 5 times. But are we 5 times better off? And we would argue that we're not. And what that means is that just because our economies are growing at a very quick pace, our problems are not being solved because growth and wealth alone cannot solve our problems. So on the next slide, I have just listed some of the sort of key challenges that we're still facing. You know, we have climate change, environmental degradation, political division. People are unable to speak to one another across political divides, income inequality, and poverty, wars, violent conflict, large-scale displacement, and all kinds of deficits in public services such as health, education, good quality jobs, and many others. Our economies have been growing all this time, but we still have these problems. Something is wrong with this picture. Something needs to be done. And what we try to do at IGP is to see what we can do to address this. Mara, next slide, please. So what we have here is a model of prosperity that shows how we understand prosperity as a sort of complex, multidimensional notion of progress. So we have things like the foundations of prosperity, which is basic public services, jobs, healthy economy. but we also talk about belonging and identity and culture. Health, somebody mentioned health in the chat box, extremely important, absolutely fundamental for a prosperous society. Power, voice, and influence. People want to feel like they have a say in their society, in their community, and then opportunities and aspirations. So things like affordable education, inclusive education, institutional equalities. And the way in which we develop these models at IGP is from a bottom-up perspective. We actually speak to people on the ground in the places where we work to ask them what is it that matters to them, what is it that prosperity means to them, and what should go in the prosperity model that we work with. Once we have these models, then we say, well, okay, we need to collect data to see how communities are doing in terms of hitting different indicators. And then we work with all kinds of stakeholders to identify specific problems, to understand specific problems, to design solutions, and to work together to implement these solutions, whether it's as community-based small-scale projects or as kind of bigger policy conversations that drive change on scale. And just in the final slide, you're going to see some examples of what prosperity in practice looks like. So in the bottom there, we have just some community projects that we have been doing in the different places where IGP works across the globe, working with all kinds of different communities, including elderly people, younger people, members of different institutions, but we also have to do the policy work. So we take our evidence from our research, we take our evidence of whether solutions and projects work, we get stakeholders, policy stakeholders in the room, including governance stakeholders, MPs, policymakers, and we have a conversation with them. And I know I'm a bit short on time, so I can't get into the details of the different solutions and how we do it, but hopefully we'll get a chance to have longer discussions about what we do and how we can accomplish more prosperous futures if you come to the IGP. So I look forward to seeing you and meeting all of you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nikolay, for that and for a great introduction to the thinking behind prosperity, which actually frames quite well the following presentations from me and from Ville, and sort of gives the overall framework of the work at IGP. We can also say that Nikolay is one of the oldest people working at IGP and developing a lot of the thinking behind and the theoretical approaches to what it means prosperity and how we are working on that redefinition. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the work we have been doing in Prosperity, People, and Planet. Is the youngest of our three MSc degrees. And these master's degrees came out of the reflection that we had as we continued our work in prosperity, that if we didn't consider the planet in these discussions about prosperity, then most of our efforts were actually in a sort of a time limit. No? The current state of the world, because of the climate crisis and because of the levels of pollutions that we are seeing everywhere, are actually putting an existential threat to humans and to the planet and to the survival of a species. No? So at the moment, we continue to live in a system that has a lot of pressures in terms of a planet that has actually trespassed Earth system boundaries. And this makes us think that the current way we are running the world actually is problematic in so many levels. But in this discussion that started many, many decades ago by a group of scientists that actually were warning us for the last 50, 60 years about the limits and the pressures that we were putting in the system, in the last decade or so, we see a wider engagement between people coming from the so-called hard sciences and people from social sciences that start to bring an integrated perspective about the problems of our time. And one of the biggest discussions that we have right now is actually that the discussion about planetary boundaries and the discussion about how we can overcome the climate crisis needs to be intrinsically tied with a discussion about the justice of these transformations that are needed for us to continue living within the boundaries. We need to think about not only about decarbonization, about climate solutions, but we also need to engage with wider discussions about how we make these transitions more just for everyone. We need to start thinking about how we evaluate and redesign consumption habits across cultures around the world, about the way economic systems affect actually the possibility of staying within planetary boundaries, and how we develop technology and governance mechanisms that actually work for most of the people and not only for a few of them. In that way, there's been a growing body of evidence that discusses about the need to integrate well-being or prosperity, as is called in other environments, sustainability and inclusion elements in this conversation. No? In the diagram on your left, for example, you can see how different well-being indicators have been flourishing, and also sustainability indicators have been flourishing for quite a long time. But then when we talk about inclusions, there are less examples of how these have been gaining traction in a global scale. No? And at the center, what we want to achieve is actually how we can include these three elements: prosperity, sustainability, and inclusion, to have frameworks and governance systems that actually are able to integrate better the solutions that are needed to overcome the global challenges. In this sense, it's not only academics talking about these needs, it's also about international organizations engaging more effectively in this conversation and pushing for bringing these three agendas and lines of inquiry together. No? From the OECD, from the UN talks, from the Club of Rome, for example, with different kinds of publications, and also more recently in the last 2 years from the European Union trying to bring the gap that happened with conversations that usually work in silos, and now we are seeing that are coming together to actually provide solutions that are more meaningful and complete. In this sense, the IGP research is precisely trying to bring these two lines of inquiry together with the creation of this particular MSc, and the work that was developed by Nikolay, by our founder and director, Professor Henrietta Moore, by our colleague, Dr. Saffron Woodcraft. On the one hand, we have the prosperity flower that you saw in the last slide of Nikolay's presentation. No, these different elements that integrate what prosperity means, but also bringing another relevant sort of inquiry developed by Professor Bob Constanza, who is actually the leader of the MSc PPP and our research director. And Bob has been working for the last 5 decades or so as well on how we can develop solutions and frameworks and measures that can better integrate the value of natural capital and ecosystem services in the conceptions of human well-being. So in that sense, this particular master's MSc PPP brings these two together to try to come up with a better understanding of the world's challenges. In this sense, the teaching that we do in MSc PPP departs from a perspective of socio-ecological systems. And basically what we think about them is a concept that was developed in the early 1990s by scholars that were very relevant in the field. Eleanor Armstrong, for example, was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Economics a couple of decades ago. And along Bob Costanza, during the early 90s, they developed this concept to try to work together with interdisciplinary frameworks and develop what is now known as ecological economics and common pool resources to evaluate the challenges of socio-ecological systems. In this sense, this perspective, what allows us to do is to integrate a wider understanding of global challenges by integrating understandings about the environment, its connections with socio-ecological interdependencies, and how this impact wider social and economic processes. This is also relevant not only from a theoretical perspective or from a framework that allows us to better assess, to better measure different types of values, ecosystem services, and the impact of well-being, but also departs from a very strong commitment from IGP in terms of developing research systems and methods that allows us to bring together different types of voices to understand complex problems. In this sense, as Nikolay was showing you with the different pictures, we always depart from a sort of a bottom-up approach, integrating different stakeholders in the processes, bringing people from different disciplines to break up silos, and also because from this understanding, we commit to developing a better, not only understanding of the problems, but also a perception, a commitment that allows us to say that different types of knowledge are meaningful and should be brought together. So it's not only about scientific knowledge, it's about also the knowledge of communities, of indigenous groups that are actually facing the problems on the field. It's about bringing public officers that might have very particular needs or types of perspectives, or even bringing entrepreneurs to develop the solutions that can tackle global challenges. And Billy will talk to you about it more in a little bit. No? But it's also about understanding that if we depart from system approaches, we commit not only to understanding of the problems, but also we think that the way we understand this process is equitably valuable. So therefore, we develop systems and research methods that allows us to bring different voices together to develop and to co-create knowledge with the people that we work with, because we have a strong understanding that prosperity might mean different people from different people on the ground. Different communities might have different perceptions, and it's not about saying which one is right or wrong. It's about respecting that diversity and understanding the benefits of that diversity to come up with solutions for global challenges. Yeah. Now I will pass the voice to Ville.
Thank you so much, Mara. So my name is Ville Takala, and the title of my presentation today is Redesigning Prosperity Through Transformative Entrepreneurship: What Prosperity Means to the Prosperity, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Program. So what does the Prosperity, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, or PI program, as we call it at IGP, do? Well, the PI program explores the role of transformative entrepreneurship in addressing global challenges. It emphasizes the need for a broader understanding of entrepreneurship as a practice, policy intervention, and institution. The program examines the promises and pitfalls of entrepreneurial activity in empowering societal, economic, political, and environmental change. We study theories such as community enterprises, effectuation, feminist and decolonial perspectives, and social impact. So that's all well and good, but what does it mean in terms of practice? Well, a growing awareness of global challenges, as Nikolay mentioned, has led many national but also multinational governmental bodies to define things such as the sustainable development goals that you can see here. These are in many ways very helpful starting points, but they remain quite abstract, if not overwhelming at times. So the question that we then ask in the PI program is that, can we operationalize, for example, the SDGs into concrete problems that we can start addressing through entrepreneurship? Therefore, more towards the spring term of the program, we focus on developing an applied understanding of transformative entrepreneurship as practice for prosperity. We learn how to design what we call a transformative enterprise. We develop skills in problem statement development, user-centered design, feasibility analysis, basic financial planning, social impact measurement, and pitching. We do this in order to build our readiness to design, launch, test, grow, and support transformative enterprises. None of this is necessarily easy. However, the good news is that we are supported throughout by leading social entrepreneurs from the London ecosystem. Therefore, learning takes place not only through more traditional forms such as lectures, individual assignments, and group assignments, but also through regular and constant interaction and iteration with entrepreneurs and practitioners. The PI program is supported and underpinned by the Fast Forward 2030 network, which is a global network of SDG-focused impact entrepreneurs based at or established by IGP and which has chapters in the UK, Lebanon, and Kenya. So many of these people feature on the program. I'll just highlight one of the entrepreneurs who lectures. So Solveiga Pakstaite is an inventor and entrepreneur with an industrial design background. She invented BUMP, a patented temperature-sensitive food spoilage indicator to radically reduce unnecessary food waste. She is the founder and director of Mimica and was named MIT Technology Review's Inventor of the Year. So Solveiga just a couple of weeks ago delivered a brilliant session to our students on user-centered design. Next week, our students will pitch their enterprise ideas, and that forms a very big part of their assignments for this term. And we'll continue working with Solveiga and others in next term as well. So that's just to give you a thought, an idea. Thank you so much for your time and attention today.
Thank you, Ville, for that. And now we're going to give the spot to Francesca and Amanda, who will give you a little bit of information about what is available in terms of scholarships and some of our student profiles that have been successful in getting this. Now your end, Francesca and Amanda.
Everyone, it's nice to see so many names in the chat that I recognise from the emails. My name's Amanda. I'm the programme admin at the IGP, and during your time in the admission cycle, you might find yourself emailing me. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I just wanted to quickly update you on what scholarships and funding opportunities are still available at this point in the admission cycle. Obviously, some have passed and some are going to be passing imminently, but there are still some great opportunities out there. So I just wanted to highlight these. One to look out for is the UCL Global Masters Scholarship, which covers £15,000 towards your studies. There are 85 of these available and they're eligible for all postgraduate taught programmes at UCL. The deadline is on the Thursday, 8th of May. There is the Bartlett Promise Sub-Saharan Africa Masters Scholarship, which is a mouthful. That one is actually coming to an end in about 9 days, so it's really passing very soon. If you already have an offer with us, or you have an open application with us and you're interested in applying for this, reach out to me and we can see if we could maybe make the timelines work. But that one covers full tuition fees, flights, English language test costs, health costs. It also provides a very specific annual allowance of £16,008. So it's a huge scholarship and is definitely worth applying for if you're eligible. There's also the Bartlett Promise UK Masters Scholarship, which is a similar scholarship open to UK domiciled students. This also covers full tuition fees, £15,864 of study and living expenses, and that scholarship is open until a little bit later. It closes on the 31st of May. We also have a couple of IGP specific scholarships which are only available to our own prospective students. One to look out for is the IGP Equity Fund. That covers £5,000 towards fees, and that is for UK domiciled students from underrepresented backgrounds. The deadline for that is the 27th of June 2020. So you've got plenty of time to apply for that one. Similarly, the Global Scholarship for Prosperity covers £10,000 towards fees, and that is for any of the IGP prospective students from abroad or the UK, and the deadline is the same, the 27th of June 2025. Just two more, the UCL East Scholarship for anybody interested in applying for the PI Prosperity Innovation and Entrepreneurship Programme, or PPP, the Prosperity People and Planet Programme. This covers £15,700 towards maintenance payments. It's for any PGT student who will be studying on the UCL East campus. You need to be UK or Ireland domiciled for this one, and there is a household income limit to look out for, but the deadline for that is 26th of June 2025. And finally, the UCL Masters Bursary. This covers £10,000, but you need to be UK or Ireland domiciled or a Ukrainian student granted home fee status. This one also has an annual household income limit, but the deadline for that is 26th of June 2025. So if you're interested in learning more about any of those scholarships, we have a dedicated IGP scholarship page, which I've linked there. We can also stick it in the chat. And if you're interested in knowing any more stories about some of our previous students who have benefited from scholarships, then we have an Equality, Diversity, Inclusion webpage, which has a widening participation tab. And in that you should be able to see student scholarship holder stories from last year. Yes, I think that's everything from me, but as I say, if you've got any questions, I can answer them now, or you can email igp@ucl.ac.uk, which I believe is also linked in the final slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I don't know, Francesca, if you want to jump in just to say about where to find information about us.
Yeah, so the IGP, I've just put in the link for scholarships, by the way, the link to our IGP scholarships page. There's also our IGP main page, which has information about all of our programs. You can also look on the UCL graduate prospectus to get all the information about the programs and also links to apply. And if you do have any queries after this that we don't cover in the Q&A, the best thing to do is to email us at the igp@ucl.ac.uk email address. I'll also pop that in the chat in a moment. And Amanda and I will monitor that and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Francesca and Amanda, for this information. And let's open up the floor for Q&A. Please feel free to drop any questions that you might have on the chat, and we're gonna monitor them and try to answer them as many as possible.
Mara,
I'm gonna stop sharing.
There's some in the
Yes.
Q&A box.
Okay, let me open those. Give me a second. Okay. So first question, how is AI integrated into the faculty courses and research? And does the program incorporate AI tools on learning research or thesis writing? Are students encouraged or allowed to utilize AI-driven tools for data analysis, research assistance, or other academic work? I'm going to take this one. As part of the work that I'm doing at UCL, I work for IGP, but I also work with the UCL Arena Center that is driving many of the policies in terms of teaching. AI continues to be a topic that is under development in terms of higher education, although we recognize that it's a topic that is here to stay and that we need to better integrate it into teaching and learning as well. There are many guidelines that are being promoted at UCL in different spaces. A couple of years ago, when the first version of ChatGPT came in, for example, one of our students Judith, she worked as a student partner with a series of professors at UCL Engineering to develop how to develop tools that can be helpful for students to engage with AI, precisely in the context of research. So we are slowly, probably a little bit slowly, but we are starting to integrate AI in terms of teaching and skills along UCL, not only at IGP, but you have broader services from UCL that are engaging with this. And there's concrete guidance in terms of how you can integrate AI for assisting services, for example, to review and proofread your work, but also about the ethics that come with it and the need for us to be transparent on the use of AI. And also the biases that AI continues to have. It's not a perfect tool, and the relevance here is to equip you with the critical thinking that is necessary to be able to engage with AI critically and ethically in the process. I don't know, Nikolay and Ville, if you want to add something on this. Good. I'll pass to the second question from Fatih. She's from Indonesia, and she's really interested in the transdisciplinary aspects of P. Could you share more about this? And we will have opportunities to contribute to co-create solutions, policy, or projects with real-world actors, such as policymakers and practitioners. So yes, P probably is the most interdisciplinary of the three programs, although I must say that the general perspective of IGP is quite transdisciplinary, actually. And so in P, we depart from a systems thinking perspective. So for example, one of the core modules that you will have in term 1 is the research methods module that is actually increasing its relevance from next academic year. And we will equip you with different methodological tools to be able to conduct research with this interdisciplinary perspective. As part of the core concepts modules that you will have access to the theories that are framing this understanding. And in term 2, just as Ville put the example of PI, term 2 programs and modules at IGP tend to have these problem-solving approach to things, no? So in term 1, we engage about what are the problems, how we understanding, what are the most relevant theories, and in term 2, it's about you developing solutions. Mostly, it takes group work. You work in small projects to tackle a global challenge. Professor Bob Constanza runs the Atelier module in term 2 for P, and it's basically a workshop kind of environment where you develop solutions about global challenges. And the biggest opportunity for you to engage with projects that are meaningful and can have a real world impact with actors is through your dissertation period, which starts early in January of your academic year, and that you develop in the first bit with the support of the module leaders on the dissertation programs. That's me and Dr. Yuan He. And then as you transition into the summer, you will have the support of a dedicated supervisor that will sort of join you in the process of developing that project. Most of our students are now taking dissertations that are connected to organizations. We work along the student union with community research initiatives. That means that students with their dissertations respond to research needs from organizations in London and elsewhere. And this is something that is increasingly being popular among our students and equip you not only with the developments of research skills, but also in terms of project management, co-developing solutions, co-developing knowledge with partner organizations in the UK and abroad. Yeah. Amanda Francesca, probably this one is for you. IELTS is still mandatory and plus a summer school certificate. What are our regulations in terms of English requirements? Francesca or Amanda?
So your English language requirements, whether you need to sit an exam or not, will be reviewed by the central admissions team. So what I would suggest is when you've put in your application, if you have, make sure you give all the information about what you have got, and then they will review it and let you know whether you need to sit an English requirement exam. If you wanted to talk about this in more detail for your specific case, if you want to send your information to the IGP email address, and we can maybe look into it for you. But that review is done by the central admissions team. I don't know if Amanda, you wanted to add anything to that?
No, I've just linked the English language requirements webpage in the chat for you to take a look at. It might answer some of your questions, but as Francesca said, if you have any follow-ups, do email us and we can sort that out for you.
Thank you, Amanda and Francesca. Nikolay, can I ask you to take the following one? I think it addresses topics that are close to you. From Temi
the
da
one
Silva.
from Temi.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, how does the program plan to drive long-term prosperity in communities, especially in underrepresented regions? Thank you for these. How does the program plan to drive long-term prosperity in community? Oh, yeah. So what key metrics will you be using to measure success and impact over time? Okay, so the key thing here is to keep in mind that we're the Institute for Global Prosperity. So we're interested in prosperity anywhere in the globe, and we're interested in the different challenges that people in different contexts encounter and face. So at IGP, we have what we call PROCOs, Prosperity Collaboratories. And what these PROCOs are collaborations with people in different settings where we experiment in research, concepts, data sets, and solutions. And the IGP has PROCOs in the UK, in Lebanon, and in Africa, including several countries in Africa. So we do a lot of work in Kenya, in Tanzania, and elsewhere. So in terms of the how, I think the key point here is that collaboration is absolutely at the core of everything we do. So in order to develop the metrics for prosperity, we have to look at the specific challenges that people are facing in context, and we have to speak to them to understand exactly what these are. So, for example, in our work in the UK, much of the focus is on inequality. For example, inequalities that emerge as a result of urban regeneration and development. There has been some work on democratic deficit as well, on good quality jobs and services. Our work in Lebanon has been concerned with large-scale displacement because Lebanon for quite a few years has been the country with the largest number of displaced people per capita because of the conflict in Syria and all the displaced people from Syria who have moved to the country. But more recently, again, with economic crisis, public service deficit, and now war and conflict. And a lot of our work in Africa has been about environmental regeneration, but also urban public services. So yes, we are interested in communities both in the global north and in the global south. We have partnerships all over the world. We put a lot of value on knowledge exchange, people from different protocols where the IGP does research talking to one another. So we've had conversations between teams in Lebanon and Africa, teams between teams in the UK. And the way in which we develop the metrics is through collaboration, listening, and working together to make sure that our work responds very accurately to context-specific challenges and needs and develop solutions that works in those contexts. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Nikolay, for that. Ville, I'm going to come to you now. There's one about MSc PI. How are students exposed to real-world businesses experiences? And will there be practical courses focused on developing a business plan? and the opportunities to engage with entrepreneurs through the course?
Yes, well, no, I mean, thank you for that question. I think it's a really good question. The answer is yes, basically to all of those. So I would say that the autumn term is more focused on building a conceptual understanding, and then in the spring term we apply those concepts into practice, primarily to two modules. So a design module where we design a social enterprise. That one features quite heavily guest lecturers who are social entrepreneurs and practitioners who come in and deliver sessions. I would say that, I mean, yes, we had a session on building a business plan. I would say that one of the central kind of contradiction that we're trying to manage and negotiate when we build social enterprises is, on the one hand, we want social impact. On the other hand, we want economic feasibility. So how do we reconcile and combine these two things? So that's one of the central questions that we explore conceptually, but also with the entrepreneurs. You'll have a lot of opportunities to network with entrepreneurs throughout the course. So do have a look at Fast Forward 2030 that I mentioned. It has regular events in London that we attend with the students, where entrepreneurs come together to discuss different topics. So just last week, or was it the week before that, we had one on femtech. So really excellent opportunity. Finally, I would also like to highlight that in the wider UCL community, there's a lot of extracurricular activities to do with entrepreneurship. So a lot of our students from this year's cohort, for example, participated in the HALT Social Innovation Prize, that just a competition that just took place at UCL's base KX space. So yes, a lot of opportunities, I would say.
Thank you, Ville, for that. Amanda and Francesca, I'm going to ask you, there's a couple of questions in the chat regarding specific scholarships and needs. Can I ask you to answer probably to those in terms, for example, if expedite sort of processing for MSA PI to apply to a specific scholarships and things like that? Can I ask you to keep an eye on the chat and probably respond to these people? And then I'm going to try to cover a couple of the questions that I'm getting here, for example, in terms of people engaging with very specific research topics, or for example, Olivia Lang, you ask about people without economics backgrounds, if it's feasible to join MSc PPP. Definitely with apart from a very sort of baseline training in term one. It's a master's, so it will be intense in that sense, but we will equip you with the right skills and training that you need to be able to succeed in that sense. No? In terms of people having 3 different scholarships to cover all the tuition fees, is totally possible, but you need to check the requirements of the different scholarships. I myself was an MSc student at UCL several years ago, and I got 2 different scholarships to be able to complete my overall funding, but you need to check the requirements of the different ones. In terms of research or the educational opportunities, Grayson, for people engaging with coastal communities, and this links to one of the questions that I'm getting in the Q&A chat. So in the dissertation period, you have certain freedoms in terms of choosing your research topic. And in that sense, we give you you can develop your project on your own. There will be some opportunities from different research projects at IGP that are looking for students to develop particular research projects. But most of the time is people choosing their own topics. As long as you are able to argue the relevance of this topic for your given master's, is totally possible to do so. No, so we have people doing, for example, in MSc Pi, I supervised a dissertation several years ago that was an outstanding dissertation by Faten Ganan, one of our brilliant students. And she developed a systematic review about prosperity in the context of conflict areas, no? And the role of entrepreneurs to drive prosperity in this sense. So she framed it within the limits of entrepreneurship, but in a very specific context, no? I'm gonna put in the chat an example to our working papers. The working papers are special editions of IGP's publications, and this one in particular was developed by our top students on that year, people that achieved very high distinctions with their dissertations, and can give you an example of the different types of things. There you will see research done by MSc Pi and MSc Global Prosperity students. Isma Juma, she was from GP, Faten Ganam, she was from Pi, Nim Hakani, and they developed really, really strong dissertations. So it can give you a wider scope in terms of what our students have been done in the past. In that sense, I'm going to go back to the question about the dissertation structure. It takes from January to September in the following year. This module runs exactly the same for the 3 masters. I'm in charge of the dissertation module at the IGP. It's a beautiful process to see students develop their research skills and to come up with outstanding research. And we provide support along the way that helps you to design your project, to equip you with research skills, and then to assign you the most adequate supervisor that would guide you in those decisions about the relevance of the topic. In that sense, all of us supervise students at IGP, Nikolay, Ville, me, and the wider research and teaching staff in that sense. I don't know if you want to add something about master's dissertations, Nikolay, given that you have a lot of experience in that.
No, I think you covered most of it. One thing that I might just chip in very quickly is that all these research projects and networks that I mentioned, we like to see them as a resource that is available for our students as well. So they're not just for the research that IGP staff are doing, they're there for our students as well. And we try to support our students in whatever ways we can to not only develop top quality research in terms of, helping them with resources, networks, and so on, but also, like Mara mentioned, trying to help them get their research published. So we have had these working papers, which are based on dissertations of past students that have been extremely successful. So yeah, we see our role as trying to bridge research and teaching and trying to support our students with succeeding with the dissertation in their research.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to questions about the size of Pi and Triple P this year cohort. So Pi this year we're around 80, if I'm not mistaken, Ville, 80 something. And with Triple P, we have 18 students this year. This is our newest master. So therefore, we also see like sort of a developing program in that sense. We don't know how many are expected this year, unless Francesca or Amanda, you want to jump in with those numbers in terms of expected number of students for our programs.
I think for next year, we'll probably be expecting a similar cohort for Pi, so around the 80. And for PPP, will hopefully be slightly more, so maybe between 20 and 30 students.
And for GP?
For GP this year, we've got around 50, and next year, I think we're hoping for around 60. So,
okay, thank you for that. There's a question in the webinar chat, Nikolay, about the role of the procols and how to bring different communities beyond Lebanon and the UK. So I know we have been working with Jackie and Henrietta for a while in terms of the Procol Africa, but what is the possibility of expanding that network? Probably she mentions, Temi mentions in the particular case of Nigeria, but what is the process of protocol expansion in that sense? If you can expand, Nikolay.
Oh, that's a difficult question. How do I answer that? I suppose the key thing, as I mentioned, is collaboration and conversation. We are interested, our starting point is our interest in research, in dialogue, and in finding ways to solve the challenges that people face. And whenever there is somebody who would like to contribute, not just me, but anybody in the protocols is open to having a conversation as a starting point for discussing ideas, possible collaborations, and so on. So I would say, the focus is on openness to dialogue, which we're always open to do. Feel free to reach out to us, come and talk to me, reach out to anybody else in the protocols, and take it from there.
Thank you about that, Nikolay. I will jump into the last question we have in the Q&A chat, and it says, does IGP allow students to take courses from other faculties? And if so, how many credits or courses can be taken outside the faculty, and any specific requirements or restrictions for cross-enrollment? Yes, all of our programs allow you to take up to 30 credits on electives. Francesca, correct me if I'm wrong, is 30 or 45?
It'll be 45 next year.
45 next year. So that means is usually 3 modules in total. No, so usually a module is 15 credits. So therefore you will be able to take up to 45. You can take from the electives that we have available at IGP, or you can take from other faculties. But something to keep in mind is that if you're taking from another faculty, sometimes they have restrictions in terms of enrollment. So therefore, it's essential that as soon as you do your enrollment, you do the selection of your electives to guarantee that you have a spot. As any university in the world, we have restrictions in terms of class sizes. So something that could potentially affect you or prevent you from joining the course that you want is because they no longer have capacity because people have enrolled before. But technically, you can enroll to others. And something that relates to the element Ville was sharing a minute ago is when you come to IGP, you also access the wider provision of services and instances within UCL. So for example, there's a Space KX is a sort of a great resource for students that want to develop wider entrepreneurship skills. That's one of the services that is available for students and staff at UCL. Is in addition to your studies, they always have additional trainings, competitions, even small pots of money to help you kickstart your enterprise. And if you come up with a really good solution, they also offer a sort of a space for you to work there and use their installations and states and things like that, and to engage in the wider network that they have. I have another question before we close. Are there any benefits or challenges you would identify to doing PPP part-time as opposed to full-time, aside from the financial question? No, actually, we have really good part-time students. 2 of them started last year in the first year. One of them is actually both of them are doing their supervision, their dissertations. Nikolay is supervising Rafa, and I'm supervising Oife, and they have been doing the PPP program part-time. And they have been outstanding. And I think that also gives them a very strong sort of development of skills and connection to the work they do in their work. And they are developing incredible research dissertation projects along the community research initiative, both of them. And I think it's a very enriching process. I don't know if I'm missing any other questions, Francesca, something you would like to add?
No,
Amanda?
just to add about the part-time, just to let you know about the actual credits weighting of the 2 years. So if you're studying part-time, you would take 60 to 120 credits each year. So you would spread your your core and your optional modules across those 2 years in a way that works for you. So I think it's a really good flexible option if you need that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Francesca. Nikolay, Ville, anything you would like to ask before we say goodbye?
All sounds good to me. I look forward to meeting many of you next year.
Ville?
Same message from me. Hope to see you in person soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We are the IGP. We're passionate about teaching and research to make this a better, a fairer, and a more sustainable world. And we look forward to having you with us in this or the next academic year. And thank you. And you have our contact details as well. Please do reach out if anything comes to mind. And thank you for joining today.